Good morning, everybody. Jim Feist and Joe Mack out of New York. Joe, it's cooling off here in Vegas. We're going to have the 80s and maybe low 90s all week. And how is it in New York?
Well, we've got kind of a cloudy, overcast day right now, getting ready for the Monday night football game at the Meadowland. Same thing, it's cooled down here, not from the degree that you're talking about, but I mean, we had a very hot for us September Sunday, about 85 degrees yesterday, and I don't think the Giants were going to beat the Bills anyway, but I actually think the Giants got a little worn out being on the field a lot on defense. But tonight should be kind of typical mid to late September New York, New Jersey day, overcast, cloudy, football weather, I guess we call it, and I guess we'll have to see what kind of Jets team we're going to get out on the field tonight. We know we're not getting Sam Darnold at quarterback. We may or may not get Le'Veon Bell now. He seems to be a little shaky with his shoulder, so who knows who the Jets are going to throw out there. But I do have to say something. I looked it up, and the Jets have actually only started out 0-2 one other time in the last 10 years. So, a lot of people here are bashing the Giants. They seem to get off to 0-2, 1-5 starts, 1-6 every year. But the Jets don't have that tradition of losing right out of the gate, but they've got their work cut out for them tonight.
Well, they sure do. How do you approach a game that you lose your starting quarterback? Now, I'm going to just make a statement here. Cleveland was 2.5-point favorite. That's with Darnold. And then on Thursday morning, we find out that Darnold's going to be out and a couple other players are out. And it goes from 2.5 to 6.5 or 7. And I see 7s out there still. That's a big adjustment. And basically, Cleveland is mostly hype off of what their roster looks like. But they do have a rookie coach. They do have a second-year quarterback. I think that if how do you approach betting or handicapping? The best approach to this game is probably just pass it and forget about it and just play in-game betting and try not to predict it from the get-go and just look at it as the game is being played out. But if you're trying to give out a play, how do you approach that?
Well, it's really a tough call, like you said. The number jumped. The way I saw it, 2.5 went to 3, and bingo, after Donald was called out with mono, it went to 6.5. I haven't seen 7 yet, but I can believe it. But it makes it a very tough call. I mean, you do have a quarterback in Trevor Siemian who's experienced. I mean, he played the better part of 2-3 years with the Broncos and got a lot of snaps in, so it's not like a guy who's a total novice. So he can play. He's kind of going to be your game manager, as you would. But I guess you go into this thing saying to yourself, are the Jets with a backup quarterback with some real trouble in terms of receiving? I mean, Nunwa is out, and Robbie Anderson is hampered a little bit, and the Jets just have they've got really shortcings all over, and I think their cornerbacks are probably the worst or next to last in the league as it is. So, you add it all up, and I can see the Browns being prohibitive favorite, but I don't know how, if they settle on 6.5 or 7, it's a big price. It's obvious that you can look and say, boy, it's tough to play the Jets here, even if the big number at home, Monday night crowd's going to be pumped up and all that stuff. It's tough. It's tough to make a commitment like that. But then on the other side, like you say, the Browns have been so much hype. And what I said to you last week on one of our podcasts was, all this talk about their offense, their defense ranked in the bottom 3 or 4 in almost all categories last year. And they showed it last week. Granted, they played undisciplined, 18 penalties. Mayfield made some bad throws, tried to zip it in there at times when he didn't have the room. But when it all shook out, the defense never made a single stop that mattered in the second half. So, do you want to be laying 6.5 points with a team that's not very good on defense? And like you said, as a first-year coach in Freddie Kitchens, who, from the looks of it, is a little bit in over his head right now. So, very tough call. I mean, we're definitely going to have a play, Jim Hurley's network. I would say there's a good chance you're going to see a better play here on the totals than you do on the side. We're going to jump into action, though, for sure. 1-800-323-4453. 1-800-323-4453. We'll be in on it, but we're going to be monitoring whatever the word is here with Le'Veon Bell and a few others. But this one is a very tough call. And like you said, Jim, I mean, we don't see many NFL games where the line shoots the way it does, but that's what we have for this one tonight at the Meadowlands.
You talk about line shooting. The Dallas Cowboys are now 21 over Miami. That's about close to the opening number, which was 20. And this is a team that's given Miami. I'm talking about has given up 102 points and scored 10.
Yeah, it's gotten ugly in a hurry, which I guess was predicted. We all know the Dolphins, were kind of banking this season tanking, however you want to call it. But I'll tell you one thing. I think it's embarrassing for the league. I mean, first of all, I don't know why Brady and the Patriots were still throwing the ball late, why he was still even in the game and throwing it. I mean, they really were squashing the Dolphins as much as possible, 43-0. But the Dolphins are, let's face it, I don't want to call them embarrassment. They're pro football players and everything, but the season is shot, and this is a problem now with the point spreads. And how high can they make them? I mean, they made the Patriots 18.5 or 19 on the road yesterday. I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, the Cowboys have offensive, they can be an offensively very strong team. We've seen it so far this year. They look pretty sharp in the two games, and that's with Elliott not even participating in the summertime games or drills. I mean, the Cowboys, to me, can easily put up 35 to 42 points on bad defenses. I don't know. Maybe they go for 50 here. And as somebody said in the paper the other day, if you didn't want to lay 18.5 with the Patriots, just think about it. With 34 to 10 or 35 to 10, you could easily picture a final score like that in a, say, Patriots-Dolphins game. So, you're covering the number with a score like that. Same thing here. You could look at it here at the very start of the week and say, wow, Cowboys at 21, maybe you can go up higher. Let's say they go to 23. What, you can't see a 42-7 final? Easily you could here. So it's crazy, and it's funny because you look in the schedule book, and those games are back-to-back this week. The early number on the Patriots is crazy against the Jets for next Sunday, and then you've got followed by the Cowboy-Dolphin game. So it's reminding me a little bit of some of the old days when, like, the Chargers with that pass-happy Air Coryell would be like a 20-point favorite over some bad teams, and we're seeing the same thing right now. And the Dolphins are a bad team and basically unbettable from this point forward.
Yeah, I couldn't put my money on them. I had the under in that game, yesterday a little bit. I didn't play a side. But, I probably would have been lured in to say, hey, maybe Belichick would back off, but he sure didn't. We got a lot of quarterback injuries, and it just came out that Breeze is going to have surgery on the thumb. He's going to miss probably half the season, if not more. I guess it will depend on what the status of the team is going forward. They have some decent backups on that team, but none of those guys are Drew Brees. So that's huge. Cam Newton he just doesn't look right. You got Andrew Luck retired. You've got injuries everywhere. I mean, you got Sam Darnold with mono. The league is going through. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but I said a couple of years ago, it doesn't make sense that you put so much money into a quarterback and then not have enough money to protect them. And that happened with Luck. You see it with a lot of these teams. They just can't keep Watson in Houston's another one. I don't know how he'll survive a whole season and the way he's getting hit. He's a great player, but...
Yeah, no, you're right. We've talked about this, Jim, and we're both on the same page for that. Backup quarterbacks are... I don't understand it either. Over the years, you get a lot of teams, they have guys that are second string that are really not ready to play. And, look at it. You named all the guys, and you could even add one more, obviously. Ben Roethlisberger yesterday, he came out with the elbow injury. They put Mason Rudolph in. Now, the Steelers supposedly, inside their confines of their facilities, they say that they're very happy with Rudolph. They think he's going to be a quality quarterback down the road. He's not ready yet. And meanwhile, they traded off the guy that was third string, the Tennessee Volunteers quarterback, Dom. They traded him in the offseason, in the summertime when they realized Rudolph had won the second string job. These teams this season, and you know this, Jim, they can go up in smoke in a hurry. I mean, Breeze, like you said, let's say he misses 6-7 games right now. Bridgewater's a nice, serviceable quarterback. So let's face it, I watched that whole game yesterday. He threw some nice balls, but they just don't click. I mean, they have guys that just have totally different roles. When Breeze is playing, Kamara knows where he's going to get the ball coming out of the backfield and this and that. They don't have that all down pat with a guy like Bridgewater. I mean, plus he's a guy that doesn't even have that much NFL mileage on him the last few years because of injury. So you look at the Saints, a team that was a legit Super Bowl contender, and you could make the case that if they go, let's say, 2-4 in the next 6 games without Breeze, this season is borderline shot. It really is. And if Roethlisberger, who knows, who let's face it, had an injury-plagued history until the last couple of years where he's pretty much been able to stay in there for 16 games. I mean, if the Steelers are without him for a couple of games or 4 games, let's say, they're in deep trouble. So, again, we're beating a dead horse. We've been saying it for a long time. You said it even before I did. You've got to put some value in here at the backup quarterback. You can't have your seasons implode like this because you don't have a second-string guy. And yet we see this, and look, we're only in week 2. And like you said, look at these guys. Cam Newton, his shoulder, he threw a few deep balls the other night. To me, it was almost like to prove he could do it. There's a lot of guys out there hurt right now. A handful of quarterbacks, elite quarterbacks, star players, and they're certainly not 100%. And some of them, their injuries are going to drag down their team's whole season.
Yeah, when you look at the structure of the league and you're paying a quarterback $30 million, and then your offensive line can't do much to protect him, and he's getting hit 100 times, and you don't have the wide receivers, you don't have the running backs because the way the cap is, the structure is self-defeating, in my opinion. And what they need to do is spread that out. They need to find a way to get more balance in their pay structure. I mean, maybe a quarterback isn't worth $30 million if you can't afford to pay anything around him. So anyway, we're beating a dead horse. I hate to say it that way, but that's what it is. We're going to see. This is going to be a topsy-turvy season. There's no question. The officiating in the league is horrible. I watch these games and I just shake my head and I say, how the hell can they not get it right? And the Saints are probably the most unlucky team in football with what the officials keep doing to them. And now they lose Breeze for at least half the season. We saw Brissett go out to L.A. and tie, the Chargers. Then we go up to see the Chargers go up to Detroit, who blew a game with. You're talking about crazy stuff. The Lions beat them, or Chargers beat themselves. And then you got a team like Indianapolis. They travel to L.A. to play that team, which is a tough game against one of the top teams. And then they go into Tennessee to play a team that just annihilated the Browns on the road by 30 points. And they go in there and the Colts beat them. Brissett is pretty capable. You talk about a backup, but he's been around a while and he's had a lot of history. And then you look at last night with Wentz. What are the odds Wentz makes it through the season without going on missing a couple games? They missed, then he looks like he got pissed because McCown was in there when he came out of the tent. Well, he was in the tent, so what are you supposed to do? And McCown looked good, but McCown always looked good. He was never a great quarterback, but he was always very capable. He knows what he's doing. He's always been that way, but he's been around 18 years. And he comes off the retired list to be a backup for Philly, which is a very good team, and looked good doing it. And quite frankly, for the short time he was in there, he looked damn good. Wentz is a warrior. He plays hard, but he gets hurt, and he gets hurt quickly. It's I don't know. When you look at that division, you got to say this Dallas Cowboy team looks way better than anybody else at this point.
That's for sure. No, you know what? I admire Wentz and his short NFL career. I mean, he is a warrior. He got injured against the Rams a couple of years ago. Remember that? He dove into the end zone for a touchdown and busted up his knee. But, I mean, he puts himself in some crazy spots. I mean, last night, again, I'm not an NFL quarterback, but, you know, these guys know when the pressure's coming. He unleashes some long throw and leaves his whole rib and midsection exposed. I mean, he knows he's going to take a hit. And I see that he's wearing those rib pads. You can see it through his uniform. But that was a hellacious hit he took. I thought to myself, all right, at best, he got the wind knocked out of him. At worst, he cracked a couple of ribs. But, boy, he puts himself in a lot of very vulnerable physical positions on the field. And like you said, Jim, I mean, you talk about being a betting man. I'll bet my last dollar he doesn't make it through 16 games without missing at least one game. I mean, you know, even the compilation of all these little hurts that he gets, he's going to miss a game here or there. The way he plays, the way he kind of exposes himself like that, where he can get hit, you know, by defensive linemen and outside linebackers. I mean, he's going to take a pounding. And, you know, when you start a season and you look, I mean, look, the Eagles over-under win total was like 10.5 or 11 this year. I mean, I thought to myself, all right, I don't think they're going to be in the Super Bowl. I could see them being a 12-win team. And like you said, McCown did not embarrass himself. But that team is not going to go 12-4 if McCown has to play 4 games, let's say. Wentz has to stay on that field. I mean, when you really think about it, the Wentz/Foles, quote, marriage was perfect because Foles can't last a year, ever, and Wentz can't last a year. So if Wentz is the guy and has to miss 2 games here and there at the end of the year like he did the last 2 years, Foles is perfect because he's good for 5 or 6 games a year. So, I mean, I know from a salary standpoint, Foles wanted to be paid. I understand the economics of it. But when I used to think about it, I said, they've got a perfect arrangement now. At the 16 games, let's say they play 3 postseason games, you know, you're going to get Wentz healthy for 13 or 14 of them. Foles will be healthy the other handful, and between them, maybe they can put together a Super Bowl one. But not to be, and, you know, the Eagles are another team. I mean, McCown, I'm using the same words for McCown, for Bridgewater, for Mason Rudolph. They're serviceable quarterbacks. They're decent quarterbacks. But when you notice, for the most part, they don't get their teams in the end zone nearly as often as they should for that offensive talent. And so that becomes a problem for those particular teams. And, you know, we could see, I mean, the Cowboys are going to win this week. You know, the Cowboys might get out and run and have a 3-4 game lead mid-season in that division, and no one's going to catch them. And then the word in Dallas will be, well, can they get a 1 or a 2 seed to get a first weekend bye? And they may be off and running in that division, so the Eagles better be careful.
Yeah, I agree. I think at the way it looks now, the Eagles are going to be fighting for a wild card unless something really dramatic happens. You know, let's talk about a team on the West Coast. And talk about the West Coast. You got Seattle. You got San Francisco, who's, by the way, Garoppolo and San Francisco are looking very good right now. 2 road games, 2 wins. Not over the best teams in the world, but they did beat Tampa and Cincinnati in Cincinnati. And now they go home and they're going to play Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh is, you know, got the injury and they're not looking that good anyway, even with, Big Ben. And Garoppolo looks good. And you got Kyle Shanahan, who a couple of years ago, he was the offensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons, and they had the best offense in football and could put up points on anybody with Matt Ryan and company. And he's starting to develop something again in San Francisco that's looking pretty dramatic. And Garoppolo is starting to look like everybody thought he would look. And you got to remember back when Garoppolo, Brissett, and Brady were all with the Patriots, and they were all highly touted. Of course, we know what Brady is. And they're all starting, and they're all looking good. But that NFC West turned that off.
I would agree. I mean, Garoppolo, again, we get back to quarterback health. Health has been his issue. If he can play, he's sharp. I mean, he's a very accurate passer. In the summertime, he had people were reporting that in drills he threw 5 straight interceptions or something. I said to myself, hey, okay, he's not ready yet, whatever. He's still coming back from his injuries. I mean, we saw what he's like. He threw for almost 300 yards, 3 touchdowns against albeit a Bengals team that was down 24 at the half, and I don't think threw in the towel, but they had a monumental task. But I tell you what, with the 49ers, not only if Garoppolo stays healthy, we know how much of a danger he could be. I mean, he could be an elite quarterback if he's healthy for a whole year. I mean, that defense has improved too. I mean, last year I had to look twice. They had 2 interceptions for the entire season, Chip, which is hard to believe. You should be able to get 5 all year without even trying. They only had 2 picks all year, and in week 1, in that game that you referenced against Tampa, they had 2 pick sixes in one game, with Richard Sherman getting one of them. So you combine the fact that the defense looks like they might be, hyped up a little more on turnovers, might be able to turn those turnovers into immediate points, and you got Garoppolo. That 49ers team, you know what? They could be a 10, 11 win type of team, things fall right. And who would have ever thought that? You'd be saying, well, the NFC West may be the best division, but even these Cardinals are showing something. I mean, I've got to say, I wasn't the biggest Kyle Murray fan, but he's looking pretty good, and he plays, I don't want to say reckless, but he plays without, any fear. So right now you got a division where you got 3 teams out of the gate 2-0, and you got a Cardinal team that covered yesterday, got the comeback tie, came back from 24-6 down against Detroit to get that tie in week 1, and obviously got the cover in that game. That's a tough division right now, and an underrated division, and sitting on top, of course. You would think at the end of the year is going to be the Rams, and, I got to look at this guy as a quarterback and wonder if he's going to take one too many hits. I mean, he definitely fumbled that ball yesterday where the Saints got screwed by the refs. But Goff, to me, sometimes takes some chances. He's still a young quarterback, but sometimes he throws it when he's getting hit right in the chest plate or something. And I say if I'm a Rams fan, you got to cross your fingers he's going to make it through 16 games. But anyway, that's a good little division, and the Niners are certainly a team to keep an eye out for, both against the number and just straight up here.
And don't sleep on the guys in the North. Seattle Seahawks know how to win. They got a good coach, and they got Russell Wilson, who I think pound for pound is the best quarterback in the league. But he doesn't get enough credit. This guy will give you 600 to 800 yards rushing. He throws the ball very well deep. He's a great deep passer, and he knows how to win. He stays in there. He's tough. And they should not be slept on. They don't have the roster the Rams have. And they don't have the Niners look to be just as good, maybe even better. But boy, I'll tell you, certain things happen. They could slip in there. They are a tough team to beat. So it's
good. Yeah, they are. And I tell you, we kept talking about injuries with quarterbacks. Russell Wilson, okay, he's had a couple of nicks and stuff in his career. He never misses games, Jim. I mean, Eli Manning may not have gotten enough credit in his career for his durability, which to me is amazing that he never misses games. We know about what Brett Favre was like. Well, look at Russell Wilson. He's out there every game, and he's got them in every game. And, maybe, not to say luck of the draw, but look at who Seattle plays this week. They're home to New Orleans without Breeze. You know what? It might be one of these years that sets up for them pretty good. I mean, if they beat them and they go to Arizona, they could go into week 5 again with a home game against the Rams, and Seattle could be 4-0. So, you might have a couple of teams outside the Rams in that division that could be sneaky 11 or 12 win teams this year.
You could. This is going to be very interesting to watch. We'll pick this up later in the week. Joe, why don't you tell us again about Jim Hurley Network, because I know we're running a little long here.
All right, I'll be short and sweet. The Jim Hurley Network, we've been around since 1985. We win a lot more than we lose, and we just come off a really nice weekend. I know we didn't get to touch on the colleges, but we had a pretty good college weekend. We cashed with Iowa State. We wound up having an outright winner with Air Force over Colorado. It was a solid week in college, good week in pros. You can get our plays 1-800-823-4453, or else just go online, www.jimhurley, Hurley, jimhurley.com. Get all the plays from us there. Obviously, Monday Night Football tonight, Browns Jets, going to be a good start to a good work week.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate it.
Okay, Jim. Enjoy your week. Bye bye.
You too. Bye bye.